the last video, we broke down what we see on screen during the trailer.
Now, let's get into analyzing what's going on behind the scenes, starting with what Link and Zelda are doing underground in the first place.
Both the true ending of Breath of the Wild and the art book, Creating a Champion, suggest that Link and Zelda travel Hyrule together after defeating Calamity Ganon.
The first question we need to ask is how Link and Zelda entered this underground area. Zelda's research notes state that before the Calamity, she thoroughly explored beneath Hyrule Castle, searching for where the Guardians were stored with little success.
It would make sense if she wanted to go back to search for any other sheikah technology yet to be uncovered.
It might prove beneficial to write a better record of where the technology is kept, or even try to improve upon it to prevent the Calamity from taking over the Guardians and the Divine Beasts again.
Or maybe something else prompted Link and Zelda to go exploring. While Breath of the Wild focused on ancient sheikah tech, the E3 trailer suggests we may be learning about the ancient Zonai civilization.
We already know Zelda has prophetic abilities based on her diary, so perhaps something tipped her off that things were not quite right.
There are several changes to their gear and appearance from the true ending, when they began their journey together. Zelda's hair is shorter, and she dons a hood similar to Link's Hylian hood.
Link's armor has changed as well. We see him sporting a turtleneck and a chainmail shirt under his champion's tunic. Over this, Link wears a chest guard. These alterations suggest they expect trials ahead, with the chainmail and chest guard acting as extra defensive gear, and the turtleneck possibly indicating an anticipated change in climate.
They're even joined by an animal who helps them carry numerous packs, presumably full of supplies.
They are packed for a long journey, so they must have some idea of how long a trip this is going to be.
The pair cross a bridge and take a break to get water, implying that they've already traveled a great distance.
It's easy to assume they are underneath the castle, though we can't actually say for sure. Though the ground below them shakes and collapses as the castle rises, it is possible that the shaking is simply so powerful it can be felt even far away. In the past, we've seen the tremors of the Calamity rising from the castle being felt at the east gate of Lanayra Road in the memory Return of Calamity Ganon. It's also worth mentioning that the earth around the courts already looks damaged, so the castle shaking, even from a distance, might disturb the sensitive ground enough to collapse it altogether.
As they enter this underground space, the architecture resembles the Zonai ruins found throughout Hyrule. Not much is known about the Zonai besides a few lines found in-game, and what is described in the Creating a Champion art book. As a lot of theories we discuss today will reference them, let's go over what we know so far about this ancient civilization and their mysterious disappearance.
Creating a Champion tells us that the Zonai's history has long since been lost to time. There are rumors that they were a savage tribe based in Faerun, where the most substantial of their ruins are located. However, Zonai ruins, or ruins with very similar characteristics, can be found in all parts of Hyrule, highlighted in green on the map. In addition to the massive palace in Faerun, their ruins throughout Hyrule seem to have elements connecting them to the ancient shrines.
The Zonai themselves are spoken of in hushed whispers, as strong magic wielders who vanished suddenly thousands of years ago. The disappearance of the Zonai is one of Hyrule's greatest mysteries. The book also gives us a hint of Zonai culture, specifically how it incorporates the Triforce. The art book states that they associate the following animals with the pieces of the Triforce: boar with power, owl with wisdom, and dragon with courage. Associating the boar with power makes sense, given how Ganon will appear boar-like in many incarnations. Connecting wisdom with an owl may be a reference to past Zelda titles, as we often see owls in games such as Ocarina of Time or Link's Awakening, providing support and advice.
As for the Triforce of Courage, Creating a Champion states that the Zonai ruins are the home of the Zonai. They are thought to have worshipped a water dragon, since the area has many rock carvings dedicated to such a being. The stone structure surrounding the Spring of Courage bears the face of a large dragon, and this place must have been a sanctuary for the Zonai as well. Given the location, the water dragon in question is probably Farosh, seeing as it emerges from the waters of Riola Spring near the Zonai ruins.
Other Zonai ruins include the Thundra Plateau, connecting them to electricity and providing another link to the tribe's worship of Farosh.
Another association seems to be darkness. The Typhlo ruins house the Kato Wawe's Blessing Shrine, where Link must navigate Zonai ruins shrouded in darkness.
You can use a mod by Schools Out 1 to see the ruins, where the architecture becomes much easier to make out. Otherwise, it's always going to be pitch black, even after completing the shrine.
Then there is imagery potentially relating the Zonai to Ganondorf. The barbarian armor references a warlike tribe in the Faerun region, where most of the Zonai ruins can be found. Meanwhile, the red hair and scroll mask resembles past designs of Ganondorf.
Plus, this gear increases Link's attack power, and Ganondorf frequently wields the Triforce of Power. With that information laid out, let's see how it fits into the trailer. The prevalence of Zonai architecture in the crypt draws an undeniable connection between the two. There are a couple of possibilities. 1, they built this space for Ganondorf, hoping to revive him, or 2, they created a crypt to help contain him. The outside of the crypt resembles an animal, though it's a bit unclear which.
From what we've seen so far, there's no boar, dragon, or owl imagery to be seen underground or inside the crypt to reference the Triforce. This is odd considering how frequently these symbols show up in the Zonai architecture we've come across in our travels across Hyrule. But while we can't draw a connection between the animal outside the crypt and the Zonai representations for the Triforce, the arm found inside does have a similar aesthetic to a particular past Zelda title.
In this trailer, there is a visual reference to Twilight Princess. The glowing arm and the swirling energy around it. They both have a similar design to the pattern on Midna's arms, as well as to other patterns in that game, such as those around the Twilight portal. The Twilight and the Zonai have a few notable similarities. Both were said to have mastered the art of magic, and left the world of Hyrule many, many years ago. Both groups also have a connection to the dark. However, the Twilight were outcast to the world of Twilight for their actions, while the Zonai disappeared mysteriously. Their architecture and culture are different as well. The Zonai are said to have been fierce, while the Twilight were peaceful. On the other hand, their similar history makes one wonder if there is a link between the two. Breath of the Wild makes only one concrete reference to Twilight Princess in the Memory Subdued ceremony. Given how all we know about the time limit of this game is that it happens far, far in the future, the world of Twilight must have passed into myth. Will a sequel have a more direct tie? Who knows? But it's hard to believe this visual similarity to the power of Twilight is just a coincidence.
Now let's move on from the visual appearance of the arm and get into its role in Breath of the Wild 2.
One way to look at it is that the arm is aiding or powering the resurrection. The green energy being funneled down and turned into malice. If that were the case, we may have another villain in the game besides Ganondorf.
There's another way to look at this, however. The arm grips Ganondorf's corpse roughly, giving an impression that they are in conflict.
In Twilight Princess, Midna, the ruler of the realm of Twilight, aided Link and Zelda. If this arm somehow originates from that realm, it is likely that it is on their side, in which case it is trying to prevent Ganondorf's resurrection.
Many people have already tried to make out a hidden message in the trailer by reversing the audio. It sounds most like the message is saying, "Find my body," or "Find the body." The chanting we hear may even be warning them to find the body before it's too late. The most conclusive evidence for this yet was discovered in the green magic spiraling through the air. These are not merely for aesthetic, but actually use Gerudo script, and one can make out the words Seal Ganon. This suggests the arm is part of a sealing spell. Between the Zonai's known magical prowess and the architecture surrounding the corpse's location, they might be behind this effort. Regardless, it doesn't seem related to Zelda's sealing magic, which is gold in color.
Then we have to wonder what the consequences of it fusing with Link might be. The hand grabs Link's left arm, but in the end fuses with his right hand, his dominant hand in Breath of the Wild. There could be side effects that prove to be beneficial. For example, infusing Link with the ability to use magic, like he's had in some previous games, or otherwise offer access to new abilities.
After all, he probably no longer has access to champion abilities, assuming that these faded when the champion's spirits passed on. Another clue may be early Breath of the Wild concept art, shown at the Game Developers Conference. There is art of Link where his right hand is able to transform into various tools. In another drawing, a shadowy figure resembling Ganondorf floats down from a mound of earth floating in the air.
It seems they are bringing back some of these original ideas for the sequel.
But the glowing hand isn't as sweet as frolicking through Hyrule Field. The trailer's tone is ominous, and when the arm fuses with his, Link grabs onto it and scrunches his face as if in pain. So what's going on? Since in the trailer Link has the Master Sword, he must be quite powerful in terms of hearts and stamina, or even at full strength. It's unlikely we'll be playing from the start at this level, since the Master Sword requires at least 13 hearts to obtain in Breath of the Wild. So the game could simply start us off at the standard 3 hearts with no explanation, or the arm could offer an in-story explanation.
The painful reaction can imply a loss of strength, much like how the one-hit obliterator saps away Link's hearts. It may weaken him as a trade-off for new abilities, or even be an outright curse that was misdirected. We might be unable to use the Master Sword until his strength returns.
This would reset Link for a fresh start, motivating players to grow and reclaim the Master Sword.
But what about Zelda's role in the story? She's no longer trapped in Hyrule Castle, but traveling alongside Link. Fans have been hoping for playable Zelda for years. With Breath of the Wild's more active, involved incarnation of Zelda, this desire has flared even stronger.
The trailer reveals Zelda with a short haircut and sporting her traveler's gear. The haircut feels especially significant. In many cultures, cutting one's hair symbolizes a new life. It's also more convenient if she's traveling and living outdoors.
From a game dev standpoint, short hair is easier to handle in motion, as longer hair tends to clip into other objects. In the true ending, Zelda comments that she can no longer hear the voice in the sword. This means that she can no longer perform any magic, or that her magic is weaker.
Either way, her power as Hylia incarnate has faded, and she is no longer too overpowered for a player character.
There are a couple paths this could take. The game alternates between the two, or you can play as both Link and Zelda in a co-op mode.
The first case, where playtime, or even the storyline, is split between these two characters, is a more drastic change. This would play similar to Fire Emblem Gaiden and its remake Echoes, where the player switches between Alm's army and Celica's army.
One potential setup is that after the ground shatters, Link and Zelda are separated. We see Link is about to grab Zelda's hand, but we don't actually see them connect before the arm grabs him.
It's possible that the arm pulls him up just before Link manages to reach Zelda. Then, the two of them must search for one another to reunite and save the day. On the other hand, they could be planning a co-op opportunity. The Switch is a great device for co-op gameplay, after all. Aonuma teased a multiplayer Zelda experience way back in 2016, stating,
"I would like to take what I learned from Breath of the Wild and see if we can somehow fuse those learning points into another multiplayer Zelda."
At E3 2019, Aonuma was asked multiple times if Zelda would be a playable character. He answered,
"It's kind of interesting that you bring that up, because in Breath of the Wild, you see Zelda and Link together often too, so to go straight into the thought of co-op is very interesting to me."
When someone responded stating that people have wanted to play as Zelda for a long time, Aonuma laughed and said,
"I see, but I can't tell you that."
There is the question of the sheikah slate, which is absent from the trailer. The sheikah slate was integral to Link's moveset in Breath of the Wild. The slate belongs to the hero, though it was Zelda's before the start of the game.
There's no sight of the sheikah slate in the trailer on either Link or Zelda. Perhaps neither will have it. This seems unlikely, however, as the slate is versatile, with its bombs, compendium, and other runes that help the player navigate Hyrule and make good use of that physics engine Nintendo took 5 years to make.
Otherwise, both Link and Zelda could have their own slate, and we'll see more runes introduced to complement their movesets, as Pyrrha was able to build her own sheikah slate and create the age-reversing rune.
But disregarding the slate, there is the question. If Zelda were playable, even if in just a few sections of the game, what would her moveset be? If she is a player character, then she needs a way to grow in strength, equivalent to how the Sheikah Shrines trained Link.
Considering the Zonai were known for their magical capabilities, what if they had something in store for Zelda to help her hone her own magical abilities? This theory assumes that Zelda's powers aren't gone forever, just that using magic for 100 years straight was taxing and she needs to rest for a while, or that she is capable of learning other types of magic.
The Zonai were said to be strong magic wielders, perfect candidates for training Zelda.
If Zelda learned more magic, it'd be a nice way to distinguish movesets between the two in a game where Zelda is playable, with Link being a swordsman and Zelda being a mage.
But what about the game's antagonist? The corpse bears a striking resemblance to Ganondorf, Ganon's old Gerudo self. But how can Ganondorf exist, even as a corpse, when in Breath of the Wild, Ganon has been sealed away? When Link and Zelda enter the crypt, they find the corpse. Malice has taken it over. Its eyes resemble the glowing eyeballs used by the Calamity. The substance floats through and around the body, a process reminiscent of the cocoon found in the sanctum of Hyrule Castle.
The Hyrule Compendium states that the Calamity only began building this scourge body composed of Malice and Sheikah when Link first awoke on the Great Plateau. But the Calamity's plan is cut short when Link arrives at Hyrule Castle, the body incomplete. Enraged at seeing one of its least favorite people, aka the guy that's killed it thousands of times, the Calamity breaks free and attacks.
Then, in the second phase of the battle, Zelda states that the Calamity gives up on reincarnation to form Dark Beast Ganon in a last-ditch effort to defeat Link. What if the Calamity felt safe doing so because it had a backup plan in the works? Rather than wait up to 10,000 years for its next shot at destroying Hyrule, it changed tactics. Accumulate enough malice to try and force a reincarnation and act out its plans with its old Gerudo body.
Given that Ganon could take control of the Guardians and Divine Beasts using malice, and even reanimate the monsters Link slays every blood moon, it isn't a stretch to assume he could do the same with a corpse. The Calamity could be using malice to puppet a past Ganondorf. A humanoid form is weaker than a giant monster made of poisonous fog, but Hey, somebody is better than nobody. Regardless of how Ganondorf comes back, what will his role in the story be?
Now, this is a bit of a stretch, given the information we have, but something I would love to see in a Zelda game. A Ganondorf who is neutral, or even good. Or maybe not good, but at least on your side for now. This works if there is a new enemy to fight. For example, if the arm or whoever created it was the main antagonist of the game. That does seem unlikely as we've already discussed, but there are other options for an antagonist. Meanwhile, this has the potential to add an interesting twist to the story. There is some evidence for this idea. If the reversed audio is Ganondorf saying, "Find my body," then it brings up the question of why. Why would he be urging them to find his body? It's possible that for some reason, Ganondorf didn't want to be revived. In some games, we get to see a more calm, less literally evil incarnate version of Ganondorf. In The Wind Waker, for example, he remembers the hardship his homeland faced and wishes to build a better world. He even tells Link he doesn't want to kill him. Ganondorf, in his own way, has been cursed by malice, reduced to a mindless force of evil. If this old version of Ganondorf is still buried deep within Ganon, it opens up the possibility of collaboration, given the right threat. The other piece of evidence is this image of the fight against Ganon. The hero doesn't really look like Link. Instead of blonde hair, he has red. His face and body seem a bit strange as well. Some people have theorized that this is actually Ganondorf. To be honest, not so sure about this. Given that Ganon and Ganondorf are pretty much the same being, but it's a popular theory, so I wanted to mention it. A couple of comics by Insert Disc 5 really inspired this story, links in the description.
While the trailer was the only official footage of the sequel we've seen as of yet, there is a lot of other material to analyze. In an interview with IGN, Aonuma stated that while the trailer is darker in tone than Majora's Mask, it is not related to or inspired by that game. I feel I have to play devil's advocate so I don't get my hopes up too high for a more grim story. In general, it's important to be cautious with this comparison, considering that Majora's Mask is highly regarded but also very nostalgic for a lot of gamers. Aonuma specifically says what we showed you currently is a little darker, implying that the trailer's tone might not hold throughout the game, rather it was done to build intrigue. At the same time, the first trailer we saw of Breath of the Wild did a great job at capturing the vast world of Hyrule and the fear of facing off a guardian, so it may be safe to assume that this trailer does the same to capture the game's feel. We won't know for sure until it comes out though. With all of this in mind, just when can we expect Breath of the Wild 2 to hit shelves? In Creating a Champion, an interview with AG Aonuma reveals they were already working on the next Zelda title. The interview supposedly took place in October 2017, and the art book was first published in Japan under the title Masterwords on December 15, 2017. At first, people wondered whether this was referring to the Link's Awakening remake or to a new game entirely. However, Link's Awakening was made by Grezzo, the team behind recent Zelda remakes like Ocarina of Time 3D and Majora's Mask 3D.
This confirms that Aonuma is referring to the sequel, and gives us a general timeline for when development began. This makes sense given how Aonuma has gone on record as saying they had too many DLC ideas they wanted to flesh out, that they wanted to make a sequel.
The engine of this game took 5 years to make, so minus at most a few new added features, if any, I imagine most of the work will be going towards creating new assets.
On March 28, 2019, Monolith posted a list of job openings for the next Zelda game. Monolith is the studio that came in to help Nintendo work on the world players explore in Breath of the Wild. The job listing asks for both programmers and artists, specifying that Monolith is working on both a new Zelda game and a non-Zelda title.
Since Monolith helped with building Hyrule as we see it in Breath of the Wild, is this evidence that they once again will be creating a new world, somewhere outside the lands of Hyrule? Further evidence of this is job listings from Nintendo asking for landscape designers. It suggests that there are more large-scale world development plans in the works. The castle does look like it's rising, and there are hints to suggest we'll be delving more into what happened to the ancient Zonai civilization.
Finally, there is what King Zell, a leaker notorious for his accuracy, said on January 3, 2019.
If you liked Breath of the Wild, you will like next year.
Okay, that's it.
Thanks,
gamers.